A better Nigeria, is it a myth or do we keep hoping?
Nigeria is a highly religious country. How come corruption thrives?
Why is adoption not encouraged in Nigeria?
Is there a future for the Nigerian youth?
Being rich and famous, is that the only reason for being an artist?
What makes a great nation? Is it the leaders? What about the people?
This is Answers with Dr. Red.
Good evening and welcome to Answers with Dr. Reggie, where critical life issues are clarified. My name is Agnes and I am in the studio with Joseph.
Hi Agnes.
And of course Dr. Reggie, the Chief Resource Person of the Center for Transformational Leadership, CTL. Just you're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Agnes. Hi, Joseph. Hi, sir.
Alright, so in our last episode we discussed civic responsibility and our emphasis was on patriotism, which we defined as one's love for his or her country. And we established the fact that this love is sacrificial and unconditional, irrespective of whether the country is good or not. Now, looking at our country, Nigeria, one of the major obstacles of that patriotism would prevent people from being patriotic is tribalism, right? And then this is what we're going to be talking about today. Tribalism. Now, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines tribalism as the loyalties that people feel towards particular social group and the way these loyalties affect their behavior towards others. So, sir, maybe I should start by saying you should shed more light, or a little more light, on tribalism as it regards Nigeria.
Yes, I really love the definition that you read out. I was having a chat with a friend of mine this week. We're talking about, racism, which is a shade also of tribalism. And there's a very profound way that he sort of defined racism. And he said it's the love that one had for his or her race. Right? Yeah. So I now pushed it further. I said, okay, does that also now mean that, is it wrong to have love for your race? Now, this love for one's race, when you promote the ideals of your own race or your own tribe, right? Can we push now, is that racism? So, if I love my tribe, is that tribalism? So I now said, will it be complete to say that racism is having a love for your race and hatred for others who are different from you?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah. So because I am not tribal, I am tribal. To be tribal is not bad. I have a tribe and I'm supposed to love my tribe because I can't give what I don't have. In fact, if I'm going to love other tribes, those who are different from me, I need to love my tribe. So loving one's tribe, loving one's race is not bad. So to be tribal is not bad. Does that mean now that if there is a job opening in my organization and somebody from my tribe applies, somebody from another tribe applies, and by the requirements of that particular job, the description, the requirement for you to get that job, if somebody who is not from my tribe, is more qualified than the person from my tribe, now you can get my drift, right? Do I employ the person from my tribe, right?
The most qualified person.
Who is not as qualified as the person who is not from my tribe? So we have to look at tribalism and separate it. If you have a dictionary here, we can actually do that. Maybe what we actually mean by tribalism sometimes is nepotism. It's nepotism. Because when for the sake, in fact, I'm enjoying that organization, if I choose somebody from my tribe, right, who is not as qualified as somebody who is not from my tribe, because it's from my tribe, because right away I have set aside what that job requirement says. I have now elevated tribal sentiment. we have to distinguish. If I promote, now, if I work to make sure that people from my tribe get empowered so that they can also be qualified for a job, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. So Nigeria is a nation of many tribes, and people need to love their tribes.
Sure.
People need to love. It is right, appropriate, righteous, clean, good to love your tribe. But for you to, for sentiment to becloud you in that love, you know, when you no longer look for that which is objective,
Yeah.
that's where it becomes a bit toxic. That's where it becomes toxic. I need to, so if I love Nigeria and I love Nigerians, right? And I don't hate non-Nigerians, I think it's perfectly good. So,
Yeah.
because there are times we just draw this tribalism to a particular extreme that is not real,
Yeah.
that is unrealistic. So, I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay, and I kind of feel like, I don't know, is it possible to even be tribalistic and not to be tribalistic? Because in this part of like in Nigeria now, it's really hard. You know, as children, we're brought up, you know, our parents saying things like, no, don't go out with that Hausa girl, or no, don't, no, that maybe Yoruba boy, no, don't play with him, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those lines are very thick.
Yeah.
And even as children, you are told there's a difference. You should
Yeah.
know. And then there's this there are sentiments attached to these different
Yeah.
tribes.
Yeah.
It's either these ones are very dirty, or these ones, okay, this one's no.
It's
no,
called
no.
stereotyping.
Exactly. And then
You know, we sort of profile people. You meet someone, maybe it's from a particular tribe, the person behaves in a particular way, and you generalize.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, you don't give people, and that's called prejudice. Because people are people. That somebody behaves in a particular way, that you meet somebody who is very nice, and is from Ijo tribe, where I come from, and you just conclude that all Ijos are good.
Yeah.
yes.
You're wrong. You're wrong. Because not all Ijos grow up in the same kind of environment.
Yeah.
Right? Not all of them grow up in the same kind of environment. And you meet a Hausa person who behaves in a very nasty way, and you say all Hausas are bad.
True.
So that's always never right. And, you know, we're talking to millennials on this program, right? Particularly. And, you know, I believe with the kind of world that we live in, because it's become so global, the way we can actually live contrary to the realities of our day is to be either racist or tribalistic, you know. So because it doesn't reflect the basic realities of today, where we say the world has become a global village. So, and you will always find somebody who is totally different from you living next door. So to still hold on to those things that you said our parents taught us and all this, yeah, maybe we have to understand they lived in a particular kind of dispensation where those lines are thick, and they talk from their own kind of, maybe experience and all those kind of things. They were victims of certain things. You were not alive when, we fought the Civil War. You didn't know when they were, but we need to redefine things, because millennials are supposed to, not just culture conformers, but culture creators. So we need to properly understand, nothing wrong in you loving your tribe, but you can't love your tribe and express it as hatred
on the other tribes.
That's the point I'm trying to make. So you saying, is it possible to really love your tribe and still love others? I think it's perfectly possible.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, Nigeria has 3 major languages. That's what
the minor
we say
ones won't
politically.
like that.
Yeah.
The one you call minor.
Yeah. And for me, I think in a way that that's tribalism at the highest level, because
to say that we have 3 major languages.
Yes,
Okay.
because you will see that it demean other people. For instance, there was a president in Nigeria, because he wasn't from one of the major tribes,
Mhm.
the
The
other
what you
major,
call the minorities.
yes, others came together and fought him out,
Hmm.
because that was one of the major reasons, because he wasn't from one of the major tribes.
Hmm.
So now, how should we see this? Because for me now, I'm from the one that we call minor
Okay.
tribes, and then in every state too, like in Plateau State, there are other tribes that are major, others, and then it's usually by population.
Yeah.
So how should I look at this so that I don't see myself as a minority in Nigeria and then it limits my contribution to nation building?
Very, very profound question. Now, the issue is this. You know, we were talking about the lines in our national anthem last week.
Yes, sir.
And I said there's a particular line that says that the labors of our heroes past shall never be in vain. Now,
Yeah.
those are the labors of our heroes past.
True.
They were very divisive. Most of the political, players, the major gladiators of our political history, they were not Nigerians. Right?
Yeah.
They were not. In fact, there is a particular video that's online when Ahmadu Bello was quoted. I mean, he was there when he said that there's a plan to northernize the country.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I won't blame him, because that was the reality of his day, because he felt threatened by other tribes.
Yeah.
But is that now, unfortunately, that still happens to be, the reality of today.
Sure.
Because if you look at the current president, he's of that kind of generation.
Yeah.
So for you who don't want to be tribal, you don't want to be tribalistic, you don't want, to practice nepotism, you've not had that opportunity, to come to a place of influence where you can change that kind of narrative. And that's why I will keep challenging now that those who have the greatest population, which are these young people. And, it breaks my heart when I see young people still express, tribal sentiments.
Yeah.
It's so uncivilized. You see, don't blame your parents if you say if they ask you not to marry outside of your tribe. Don't blame them. But you getting married is still going to be your decision, because this is what I tell people. You blame your parents. My parents that say I should marry from my tribe. I say if you're going to smoke hemp, your parents will say no, but you will still go ahead.
True.
If you're going to misbehave, your parents will say no, but you will still go ahead.
That's true.
So it's because you want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because you've bought into it. If you check newspapers online and you check the comments, if they don't write names in those comments, you can easily conclude where they come from.
Yeah.
And those are things we have to change. If they don't put names, if you put an Igbo name here, Yoruba name here, Hausa name here, you will be correct. Because depending on the story, who does it promote? Who does it de-emphasize?
Yeah.
All the people that the major player there, if is, they will all support. Those who are not from his tribe will be against, regardless of religion. In fact, sometimes, it's also part of it. Religion also plays, because it's actually ethno-religious. It's ethno because majority of people, and those things are not even fact-checked. They are not fact-checked. The majority of people that come from the north are Muslims. Majority of those who come from the south are Christians. It's not fact-checked because it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. So for me, there are some things that we cannot change about our past, but we can actually see ourselves as being positioned that we can actually create a new future. And honestly, my own suggestion has always been that this country needs to be restructured along tribal lines. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's our reality.
True.
You can be tribal, but it can be deployed, in a very progressive way.
Yeah.
You don't have to be afraid, have a phobia, have a hatred for those who are not of your, that's being clannish. Because the tribalism that we're talking about, even with the major tribes, there are also tribalism within the tribes.
Yeah.
You know what happened here during the last election here?
True.
When a particular politician was accused of not just being Plateau, but it was that he had a kind of a clannish,
Yes.
agenda. That is a Birom agenda, something like that.
Yeah.
All of us have, these are plateau people that you still, within the plateau, there's also a sub-plateau within the plateau.
Yeah.
So it's a serious problem. But you see, I will not blame those of that generation because that was their reality. There was mutual mistrust. But we still allow them to continue to play that game. But what we need to know now is that this game they are playing is for personal, because how many of them really, love the Yorubas and promote and really develop the Yoruba states? How many of them really love the Hausa and really develop the Hausas, love the Fulanis, and every Fulani man, is
really
prosperous,
empowered, yeah.
is empowered. So it's a lie. It's a lie. If you look at it in terms of race, there is, because this is not peculiar to Africa or to Nigeria, there is serious, even gender, kind of, maybe like people are unequal in terms of gender. In America, they talk of the white male, that they are so privileged. White male.
Yeah.
So somebody said, if we really want this position to really add value to this company, we need to employ a white male. Not just a white male. Now that's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
Who says the brain of a white male is
better,
sharper,
yeah.
is better than that of any kind of a human being? So these things are everywhere. They are everywhere.
And it was something similar Hitler used, the Aryan.
Exactly.
White, yeah.
Exactly. So there are privileged whites within the whites.
Yeah.
There are privileged blacks within the blacks. So but I believe that these things is getting to its head. And my own take is always, if I am a victim of tribalism, it's not the fault of the person who is tribalistic. It's my fault.
Yeah.
I allow it to affect me.
Yeah.
Right? I won't return tribalism for tribalism. Right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's easier for me because I'm also from a minority. Maybe it's easier. But I believe a lot of minority people, they've deliberately sort of disadvantaged themselves. Because they say, okay, whatever, negative experience that they have economically, socially, there is a reason that settles them that, well, that's my lot because I'm minority.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why maybe the president that you are talking about also couldn't really rise up and be able to sort of unite. This friend of mine that I was talking about, who, this is strictly his opinion. He said that where the black race has been the ones that really with my own little experience, I think I want to kind of slightly agree with him. There's a black race that is always willing to love others. Right?
Yeah.
Because from my own experience, if you walk the streets of maybe London or whatever, if you see a white man who is a beggar, you will never approach a fellow white person because they won't give you anything. They will not give you anything. They don't give alms. If he's going to approach somebody, he's going to approach a black person. I've seen that personally. You see a junkie on the street who's white. If he's begging for money, he will hardly go to a white person. If you see somebody who is saying he has medical challenges and he needs money, maybe in a train or a bus, he will walk to non-whites. Because they are the ones who will, yeah. They are the ones, these other ones don't have that, and I don't blame them for it, because all this thing depends on how we are raised.
True.
But I want us to look ahead. Are we going to slaughter the interests of the country, on the altar of tribalism? Because it's not going to work. If you promote all that, because it throws away merit. It throws it out. And if we don't do things on the basis of merit, we will continue to wallow in this kind of a mediocre kind of a situation.
Okay, so in one of the previous episodes, we talked about religion.
Yeah.
And then, based on my observation of how it is done here and in other places too, you will see that if there is, especially on the two main religions, if there's a mosque and the chief imam is Yoruba, you will see the majority of people that worship there are
It happens in
Yorubas.
churches too.
Yeah.
It happens in churches. Yeah.
Yes, and then
Yeah.
it's the same with
Yeah.
churches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, how should religious leaders take advantage of this and de-tribalize the people? Because it seems at that level, because even politicians now are using religious leaders.
You know,
for their
tribalism is learned. Racism is learned. It's an orientation. You are trained to be that way.
Yeah.
And now, if that's the case, you can also be trained to become de-tribalized.
Yeah.
I've also met a lot of, Americans who, because of the way their parents raised them, they can't just bring themselves to look at a non-American or a non-white in a very condescending manner. It's learned. It's a learned behavior. It's an orientation. And that's what we're trying to do on this kind of program. It's going to be something that's deliberate. You need to come to another level of awareness that this doesn't work, that people are people first. Skin pigmentation is just, it's not what defines us.
Sure.
But how is that, maybe in our curriculum? Because there's something that we did in our high school, in our organization, that we don't put state of origin in our form. And it's deliberate. Because we don't want Emeka to see himself as different from Shegun.
Yeah.
Or Amadu. Or something. And those are little ways. So if your mom, for instance, tells you, don't you ever even consider marrying somebody outside of your tribe? What needs to first of all come to you is that where are the stats that marriages work when people marry from their tribes?
Whoa.
Where are what's the statistic that the marriages that work is because people marry from their tribe? It's non-existent. It's just a myth.
Yeah.
It's a myth.
Sure.
Now, there's a way to also, gives you an opportunity to now sit down with your folks, with your parents and ask this kind of question.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here? Is it the success of my marriage or just to continue to perpetuate? Even life says that variety is a spice of life.
Yeah.
So we need to consciously promote diversity because these things are learned. Because we have to know, historically speaking, the colonial masters deliberately left us with a divided country. In fact, we learned that in government, divide and rule. So these things were intentionally put there so that because the moment we are divided, an external force can easily, take advantage of us.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep saying that the problem with Nigeria is that there are no Nigerians in Nigeria. So we can also say that Nigeria is a nation of tribes. So we can have United Tribes of Nigeria. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can have United Tribes of Nigeria. So there's nothing wrong because everybody has a tribe.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be, afraid to talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is where we go on a short musical break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This is Answers with Dr. Roju, and we've been talking about tribalism. And I think I should start with this. That's it's obvious that a lot of millennials are getting married. So we're having post-millennials and all of that. And I think those ones should be in school and stuff. So I want to know the responsibility of schools in ensuring that these kids don't end up being tribalistic.
It starts from those who are teaching them. Because people, you can't rise above those who are teaching you. Yeah. Now, what kind of, what have we been able to put into our curriculum? That is deliberately put there so that we can deal with tribalism. Because sometimes we live in denial. And sometimes we just leave it and it's called the big elephant in the room. It's there, we talk about every other thing, but the real issue. Have you ever engaged somebody who is, who is not of your tribe? I remember I lived in a house. The landlord of that house is Yoruba. I'm there. I was raised in Yoruba land, even if I wasn't, I'm not a Yoruba person. And we had a neighbor who happens to be Igbo. These things happen everywhere. So when you talk about education, it's not just in the classroom. Even when people negotiate to buy something in the market, I've had it. Yorubas will say, but we're speaking the same language now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're speaking the same language. That is, because we have the same tribe, drop price for me. So it's something that is ingrained. It's just in our... So, and you mentioned children. You see, that's where we need to start it. That's where we need to start it from. That from that cradle, we're already, telling this. There's a professor of mine, in school. At the time he was talking to me, he said the first time, he was saying this in 2008, he said the first time he ever saw a non-white person was maybe around 1956. This guy was already in his 20s.
Okay.
Before the first time he will see a non-white, because he was raised in a predominantly white environment. Yeah, white community. Can you imagine that? You're already in your late teens.
Yeah.
So he said he read it in the papers that a particular baseball team signed a black person. He was not wondering, what's that? He couldn't picture it. He couldn't picture it. And that was what, stoked the fire in the family, that who are these kind of people? And then the father had to take them through, because he's the first son. He had to take them through that. There's a guy called Martin Luther. There's he had to learn, he had to deliberate. And this father wasn't even literate. Right? But because he travels out of that place to go work, he's interacted with people of other cultures, other kind of, orientation. So he was able to deliberately raise the kids, to say that you will always meet people who are different from you.
Yeah.
In fact, all of them, without exception, they all adopted Africans.
Wow.
Even their grandchildren. Wow. Adopted Africans. All of them have Ethiopian children. All of them.
That's serious.
His own son is called Brian. In fact, the black Brian. There's a white Brian, there's a black Brian in the same family, because they were mates.
Okay.
They went to see a movie. They didn't ask white Brian of his ID card. When black Brian was about to enter, they asked him of his ID card. He said, why are you asking my brother? You didn't ask me. And the guy caused a major sin there. A major sin. So these are things, it has to be learned. And he said the major, I don't know how I'm going to say this on air, that the way this thing, I'm going to say it because we're talking about children. So let's be children, right?
Yeah.
Let's just act it. He said one message that really brought it home for him was what happened between Brian. Because Brian brought this Brian home because he was homeless and they adopted him.
Yeah.
They were, primary school pupils when they adopted the boy. He said his own son, the biological son, came to him and said, Dad, I don't know how I'm going to say it. He just went to the toilet, right? The two of them went to the toilet and he came out and said, I just discovered that my poo and Brown's poo is the same.
Let me see, I expected it to be different.
Yeah!
Yeah,
exactly. And he said, wow. And that was what happened to me when I had a cock crow in the US. It's the same as the one in Genta.
Yeah. I think I understand that.
The way the cock crows in Genta is the same way it crows in New York. I said, so these guys are even the same. So he said he now thought about it, that wow, that is so true. You see, blood has no color. It has only one color.
Yeah.
And that's what makes life.
True.
So can we begin to bring that to our... If you train a child when he's very young, he will grow up not to ever see anybody as different. Your name is Ngozi, mine is Femi. It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
It's just a name. It's just a means of identification.
True.
Yeah, but there's a way that Ngozi Chukwuemeka enters our minds, and you are Mohammed and you are Amadu, and it just sort of makes us look ourselves differently.
Yeah.
So it's something that has to be learned.
And then, sir, adding to what you just said,
Yeah.
The teachers will have to be intentional about that.
Absolutely.
And then the parents too should be involved
Yes,
because they
I was
are
about
kids.
That's
Yes.
why we say it's education, not in the class.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because for me, the way my mom raised me, she was very intentional. I grew up, I had Muslim friends,
Mhm.
and I had friends with, I had Igbo friends and all. And if
Yeah.
I come home and they gave me food, go and eat with your friends.
Yeah.
That was how she would always say,
It's
go and eat.
deliberate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Very
then
intentional.
I discovered that I had friends. Although in my culture there are certain people they will say some negative things about them. My grandma used that a lot. She want to insult you. She use other people.
You use another tribe to insult you. Why
Yes.
are you behaving like?
Yes.
Exactly.
But my mom was very intentional about that. She made sure that I didn't learn those things.
Mm.
And then right now, most of my friends are not even from my place.
Absolutely.
Because it helps. So parents also should be very intentional about that. Since you mentioned millennials are getting married and then they are post millennials. So that's something millennials needs to do, because tribalism will not work for us.
Exactly.
Yeah, as it worked for them before.
Because just imagine a scenario where maybe you have a teacher trying to, be intentional about telling kids, okay, this is what you need to do. You're not supposed to be, telling people they're different or all of that. Like, you're not supposed to see people like that. And then they go back home. And then there's this.
Then they hear something else.
Yes.
So there's like a confusion. You see,
Exactly.
the reality is this, that even within this tribe, there are divisions.
Sure.
There are divisions. They are not united.
That's true.
Because this is a nation that's very complex. We are very diverse. There are almost close to 600 dialects in Nigeria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just checked.
Yeah. It's close to 600 dialects. So, these are just means of communication.
Yeah.
There's a way we can use it. I mean, in South Africa, they have 11 official languages. 11 official.
Wow.
In Nigeria, we have only one.
Yeah.
In South Africa, it's 11 official languages. And you know what they've done post-apartheid, although they are working contrary to that now. Their flag is called a rainbow. They call it Rainbow Nation. So they sort of promoted their diversity. But now, what we are seeing, the popular phrase now, the popular word now, the xenophobia, which means, that anyone you have a phobia for those who are not of your own kind of nation, because you see them as threats. So that rainbow, they've forgotten about it. Nigeria too is a rainbow nation.
Yeah.
We are people of different shade, different opinion, different culture, all those kind of things. I remember, my elder brother married from the East. I remember the first time the lady saw me greeting my dad and I prostrated. She was wondering what I was doing on the floor. Because they don't do that in the East.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was wondering what I was, what's that all about? Because you couldn't see that as greeting, but she had to learn it that when you want to greet an elder, you kneel down as a woman.
Yeah.
Now go to another culture, maybe the Robos, it's the man that kneels down. It's the male that kneels down. So these are and it's so beautiful to be able to see all those kind of things. It's interesting. Somebody should learn it. Somebody should even study it and appreciate the beauty.
Yeah.
So it's just it's boring to be tribalistic.
Yeah.
Very boring.
And then, sir, our case is not, can I say, a very kind of complicated case, because what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore, I think they were more divided than we are.
Yeah.
Because their schools, there were Chinese schools.
Yeah.
And there
was the Malay.
Yeah, every tribe had their school. And then, the Chinese were taking their children to Chinese universities. And the Malay was the same and all. But you see, he had to do something about that.
He rose above all those sentiments.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's something that is possible, since we still go to school together. But then it was very difficult. And then there was something he said. he said that if that was when he had to make English,
The lingua franca, yeah.
since it was neutral. He
Yeah.
said if we don't use English, we might not be able to compete favorably in the League of Nations. So let the Chinese also teach in English so that the Chinese can. And then he made sure that the private sector, the government, were not giving jobs to those who could not speak English.
Wow.
And then it became very helpful and useful.
It was good for Lee Kuan Yew because we can't just directly compare Nigeria to Lee Kuan Yew, to Singapore. Singapore, the whole of Singapore is not as big as Plateau State.
Wow.
Yeah. I met a guy who worked with Lee Kuan Yew years ago in a conference, and he said, if you don't control your speed from one end of Singapore to another, you might enter the sea. That's how small it is.
Yeah.
So because many times we've referenced what Lee Kuan Yew, but I want us to pick the principle.
Yeah.
Not just copy and paste.
Yeah.
Because Singapore is small. It's very small. But having said that, there are some states that are very diverse.
Yes.
What is, because Lee Kuan Yew was able to do that. I asked this guy, what was the secret? And he used one word. He said integrity that earned him trust. He said Lee Kuan Yew was a man of integrity, and to that extent, people trusted him. People trusted him. And that's the same thing with, Mahatma Gandhi, who at the time, I remember a particular scene in the movie when somebody from the Hindus came to him and said, a Muslim just killed my child. He said, better go look, for a child of a Hindu that just lost the father, so that that child doesn't grow up and kill another person. You understand?
Yeah.
Go and adopt that child and raise him so that he would not, so the man, we need to have leaders who will rise above tribal sentiments and look at things objectively. And when we say leaders, don't let our minds go to politicians. In your own little space, right? In Patrice Radio, where you guys work, in that place you have many tribes. What are the means of communication? Do you take it for granted that we all, because you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked. I remember there was a particular, in a particular department in our organization. Somebody said, the only people that come late to this office here is that the Birom people.
Whoa.
And I was shocked that that thing came out. I had to call that guy into my office and say, what did you just say? I said, right in this office, there is a Birom guy who never comes late. Just because two of them. What are you talking? These things, it just comes out and you don't know that it's there.
True.
You don't know it's there. You just prejudiced. And this other guy was livid. How can you say that about Birom people? I also tell the guy, I said, please, don't also be a bad ambassador of Birom people. Right? Because you will send message home. So everywhere you are a tribes person. And people can easily apply your own conduct to your whole tribe, which might not be true. So be a good ambassador. So that's why I started with being tribal is good. Also let us appreciate the responsibility.
Yeah.
I want to be a good ambassador of my tribe so that people don't abuse my tribe by my conduct. So this thing is, is both ways.
Yeah.
It's both ways. Love your tribe to the extent that you want to be a good ambassador. So that when they see you, they are comfortable with people of your tribe.
Yeah.
So it's really a very complex, and I believe maybe some other time we have more time to be able to really dissect this, especially for the millennials.
Okay. And the fact that having tribe is not a curse. It's
Yeah.
not.
Everybody has
It's
a
not.
tribe. Yeah.
Right, so guys, this is where we come to the end of this episode. So don't forget that you can visit our website at ancestry.drreggie.org to stream on all our previous episodes. So next week we'll see you. Bye bye.
This is Patrice Radio.
Give us a call or chat us on WhatsApp on +234 814456 9000. Check out our website and interact with us on www.answerswithdrredu.com. Like our Facebook page, Answers with Dr. Reju, or send us an email at answerswithdrreju@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at Dr. Reju Answers. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Answers with Dr. Reju, where you can get all our episodes. Join us again on Answers with Dr. Reju, where critical life issues are clarified.